All right, guys, so thanks so much for joining us for another episode of Brooke Report. I am joined by Ruan, Marinho, and I'm so stoked for you to be here today. Small business owners, real estate agents, all of us, at some point we need to realize that we are in marketing. There's this massive CEO pillar to our businesses. There's the CEO, COO, and the CFO pillar. We talk about all of those in this podcast, but you really just exemplify the CEO pillar, which is sales and marketing. And congratulations to you and your company. You've realized $1 million in sales this past year.
Yeah, it was our first year doing $1 million. Thank you so much for having me on, David. I appreciate it. We have fun working on your website as well as some of the stuff that you're doing. So we look up to businesses like yours, and we help your businesses get more leads and generate more sales online. So yeah, last year was our first year doing $1 million. So thank you.
That's awesome. And so when you're talking about getting like more leads, you're also working on web development. What would you say is the general scope of work that your company focuses on, and what aspects do you most excel at your company?
I think if we were to characterize it in like a single sentence, it would be we help brands explain who they are without having their perfectionism get in the way. A lot of brands are very hesitant on releasing things because they want it to be perfect. And I think that's the characteristic that makes people really great. Like, for example, some of the videos that you do, you understand they're not perfect, but you want to do it. Like, it's better to do it than not do it, right? So we help brands really explain who they are across the interwebs, using primarily their website, and then obviously a range of tools that we use to advertise for them.
Yeah, I find a lot of small business owners, they get caught in that, it's a cliche thing, but they call it the perfection trap or a perfection mindset.
Sure.
In which they're almost, I would say like paralyzed by that idea that something needs to be perfect before it's released, without realizing that excellence that they're hoping for, that they want, that we all would want for ourselves, is actually more of a journey than it actually is a destination. And so that needs to be some sort of evolution that happens. We don't realize our career. You didn't start out year one doing $1 million in sales. That's a progression for that, and same with our businesses as well. And so that's great that you're helping tell people's story through that. What are some of the things that you're finding right now, just along those lines, that small business owners, they kind of get tripped up on when it comes to marketing?
Well, there's a lot of things. I definitely think the number one threat that a small business may have is relying too much on one source. So
Okay.
before pre-podcast, we were talking about one of my good friends who relies solely on Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram. And those advertising policies change rapidly, right? So every single year, there's a new Senate hearing where Mark Zuckerberg has to go in front of the Senate and basically tell the senators that he runs ads. That's how he makes money. And they keep cutting down on him and putting pressure on him. And so therefore, he tells advertisers they can't advertise on the platform anymore. Same thing with Twitter, the censorship thing going on. So a lot of businesses focus solely on that, and they're not focused enough on their website, their brand, Google search, anything else. So I'd say the number one opportunity for a lot of these people is to be more omnipresent, but doing it in a way that's not cookie cutter. There's a lot of people that do companies like ours where everything is so cookie cutter, right? For them to make more profit, we're more of a tailored, customized approach at what's actually going to drive business, following an omni-channel approach. We don't just look at one thing. The one thing we always look at, though, is the website, because the website can't change what's being said about you, right? Like, Facebook can shut off Brooke Group any day. Mm-hmm. Nobody can shut off your website. It's a domain living on the interwebs. Nobody owns the internet, right? So that is kind of one of our core competencies, is making sure the website is exemplified the right way. Because if you told people from word of mouth about Brooke Group, they would go to your website. They may check your Facebook, but if Facebook bans you, it's very difficult to have that type of presence and rely on it.
Well, I think it can be so, actually daunting sometimes as a small business owner, as a real estate agent. You're getting into this business, and there's so many platforms to market yourself on, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's like, where do I start? What do I do? And so for many of our listeners who are just beginning real estate agents, they're thinking to themselves, okay, I need a Facebook profile, I need an Instagram profile. Some people are telling me to do Snapchat and TikTok, and is that important to me? Should I be doing LinkedIn? What are some of your suggestions when there's so many things available? Like, how do you help businesses narrow down what's important?
I think it's always critical to understand who their customer is. So I know in real estate, there's, you target a bunch of different types of demographics. Everybody's buying and selling a house most of the times, right? Everybody needs shelter. It's one of the basic necessities of us, and water and stuff like that. For TikTok, which is a really interesting point of conversation, we do well on TikTok. And primarily, I think it's because we understand our audience. Being a realtor and talking about tiny houses would work well on TikTok because...
Well, why is that?
Because the audience is Generation Z, which are the people that are being more minimalistic and the people that are being more, progressive, and they're being more, less about stress and work your entire life away and more about enjoying stress-free and being creative with the time that you have. Those people are interested in hearing about your tiny houses. People on Facebook, the demographic is a little bit bigger, so you may want to talk about these big, beautiful houses that you could never afford because that age, that's what they looked into when they were growing up. And for anything like Google search, the beauty of Google is you're getting everybody that's searching. So I would say the platform you focus on really needs to be based on the customer you're trying to reach. Because Google, you could reach anybody. Everybody's searching. Everybody's used Google. One of our age-old sales tactics is, when's the last time you used Google? The customer always says, today, of course. Well, why is your business not showing up there? But on TikTok and stuff like that, if you're going for that more Generation Z type of customer, your content needs to reflect that. So if a realtor talked about, check out this amazing minimalistic home, it's going to get more traction than work your life away and get this gigantic mortgage.
For sure. So if you're a real estate agent, how do you, and let's say a real estate agent consulted with you, is there some sort of like calendar with content that you're putting together in order to determine what goes on what day? And it's so easy to get overwhelmed. How do you condense that and make the most sense of it?
Well, I think the first step is just understanding that it's not a requirement for you to post on social to be successful with it. If you post once a day and each of those posts are bare minimum quality, it's worse than actually posting one thing that is very good quality. And I had a lot of personal struggle with that with my YouTube channel because my YouTube channel right now I have 120,000 subscribers and I teach how to do SEO with like over the shoulder. The videos that I take a lot of time with go so much further than me just saying, I have to post today because my audience is going to forget about me. Let me post some crap up. That never works. The video goes very small. The videos that I do that gets 2 million views, right? And that's kind of like the algorithm's working for you because the content is amazing. There's billions of hours of videos being recorded to the internet right now. What makes your video or your piece of media different? And if the algorithm finds out that it is different and they find that people are watching it longer, they're going to promote it more. So you're actually wasting more time posting every single day than you are carefully thinking about the information you're setting out there.
So how do we take what we started with, which was the perfection trap and like not getting started in it, and then also talking about the quality, right? Because it's better just to get something out there. So what would you suggest for small business owners? How would you plan that out?
Well, I think part of that is the consistency in the beginning is very important because you become comfortable with what you're doing. Listen, people watching a video of you and talking about it is extremely uncomfortable for, I think, everybody because you don't know what they're saying. But the consistency really becomes very important in the beginning so you can actually just start doing it before you start planning on making all of this perfectionist type content. And that's the same thing with almost everything that you do. Like when you go to the gym your first time, you're not spending an hour and a half there going crazy. Usually it's a few times you go and it's really short periods of time and then you start doing some of the perfectionist type stuff. So I would say in the beginning, it's very important to do what you guys did in the beginning, which was get as much information out there, create some type of video theme, make sure it's not perfect. It should never be perfect. Nobody's expecting you to be perfect. Gary Vee mentions it best when he says you should be documenting instead of trying to be perfect. So just document your journey in the beginning, and then once you start understanding what the algorithm wants and what the people want, then you can start to make content that reaches more people.
So how do we take it, there's a huge challenge in the real estate industry between creating the content and actually getting and securing leads through that content, right? And so if you don't mind, go into that process and how you help business owners or your recommendations to business owners. How do they secure the leads from those who are actually consuming their content?
Yeah, that's a great question because you don't want to be Mr. Sales every single video.
Right. Nobody wants that. The way I talk about it, and I just published something on this, is educate, then opportunity. So I'm constantly educating my consumer, and then when I do present an opportunity, they're actually ready to receive it. It's like you're almost equipping them to do the tasks that you're presenting them.
Sure. The best way to do that is to understand that every single video that you've put out, YouTube, Google, Facebook has left a cookie in that person's pocket, so when they walk away from the computer, you can bring them back in with advertising. So your videos need to be more informational, more creative, more just watch this video. There's nothing to sell here. There's nothing, in my intention to get you to sell your house with me. But understanding that there are advertising platforms of where these companies make the most money you can place ads that retarget the viewers. So for example, your recent video that you posted online introducing your entire team with the name change has 2,000 views, let's say. Each of those 2,000 views can be placed as a retargeting ad on Facebook and Instagram, and that can say, list your house with David Brooke. You've been watching his videos, but if you're interested, you can list your house with David Brooke. This way, your entire page is not filled up with sales, but people are seeing your sales offers on the back end, so you're keeping your brand highlighted on the front end, but you're keeping your offers strong when they visit their phones and kind of stop watching your videos.
So real estate agents who are constantly, creating reels or whatever it is, and it's always like buy with me, sell with me, buy with me, they're actually just trying to make advertisements when really the consumer is actually just looking for content to enjoy.
100%. Now, back to that, David Brooke is a very important aspect of the marketing because people buy from people. People are showing signs that they don't want to buy from companies anymore that have, unless of course you're doing some sort of business-to-business transaction. But if it's list with David Brooke, and this is the content that they've been watching, they're more likely than list with Brooke Group because it's a very personal connection, and if they've liked the media that they've seen, they may consider reaching out to you.
Yeah, and I find that it's so important for agents to have their own personal brand, yet still be a part. They're not like. Some people don't understand where to leverage brand and where to leverage their personality, right? Like brand creates something that is consistent and familiar and it makes me feel good. It's like we were talking, pre-podcast about the person who holds, a Starbucks in their hand. Why? Because it feels good. It has identity to it. It's like stronger, bigger, but it's not necessarily all the time that like, they might want to go into a local place and buy from a specific barista or whatever it is. And so like there's that connection point there that can go even stronger than brands. So I think for, myself, what I'm constantly recommending for agents is to have their own personality on it, which stands on top of a brand, which is a platform for them.
Yeah, and I would be interested, like when you get somebody that reaches out to you directly, like do you list that house or deal with the customer, or do you delegate it to your team?
So it just depends. Like at this stage in the game, like I'm not taking any like outside, people who are looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate.
Sure.
My team handles that.
Sure.
And that has been like the consistency for 3 years now. I still help friends, family members, neighbors, that sort of thing, people who are close to my, sphere group. And even then there's a lot of, great agents on our team who can help and probably do a better job than I can right now, just because my focus is, on, growing the company and, providing more opportunities. But, when people are reaching out, yeah, I could certainly reach out. Sometimes they're asking, for the Brooke team too, but mainly it is for a specific agent in order to help them.
And that's great. I mean, I think that's the value of the personal brand is you get the opportunities. Although you may not be the one facilitating it for that customer, you still get the opportunity. Dave Ramsey, huge financial educator online, he doesn't do the accounting or the wealth management or everything he talks about, but he refers them out to his group. Nesso FLP right next door happens to be the one in Connecticut he refers to. So that way, he's created a personal brand. People like doing business with Dave Ramsey, and they're going to trust who they recommend him to. So that marketing trend alone has completely changed my business, and it's impeccable to do to make sure that people know that you are the expert. So when they think of real estate, they think of Dave Brooke, even though you may not be the one doing the transaction.
That's right. One of the things I find like is like so consumable is like what people want to know every day when it comes to real estate. They're like, where are the best places to eat? Like, tell me about the schools. What's it like to live in a specific area? And so a recommendation to real estate agents everywhere is start producing the content that your consumer actually wants to hear rather than advertisements just for you specifically. And just what are some things that you see that business owners do, maybe not well, but are actually making mistakes at? Like, so what are the big things that people are showing up and like, oh, that's not a good idea to do?
I think the quantity over quality thing is very important. Because when you're trying to build a personal brand online, you're trying to create a consistency with the things that you do and almost an expectation of the next time this person posts, it's going to be as good or even better as the last post that they did. So YouTube is a huge place for this where people post, randomly because they're trying to keep up with the quota. And once YouTube starts paying you money, it's your incentive to post a video. Like YouTube gives me $90 every time I get 1,000 views. So like, yeah, of course I want to make more videos. It's incentivized. That's why they're the biggest search company in the world. But also, if I post something that's crap and my viewer sees that and they came from a past video that was really good, they may stop watching. So I think understanding that before you publish things on the web, just make sure that it has some of that quality that you expect to do every single time, but don't let that hold up your production. Some of our clients, for example, you mentioned a good point about like, why should somebody move here? A moving company that we work with, we've been working with for 3 years, we wrote an article for every single town in Connecticut of reasons to move to this certain place. And what we did was we went into a Facebook group and we asked, why should I move to Simsbury? And hundreds of comments of telling me certain reasons, and our content editors went in, wrote blogs, and they all rank. If you type in reasons to move to almost any town, you'll see CT moving and storage. But that goes back to kind of what you were saying, understanding what that demographic wants to read and see, and planning it before you actually execute it. So I think it's difficult for a business to do that because they have issues representing themselves, and that's why companies like us exist, because we're kind of like, listen, we know you don't want to jump off this plane, but boom, push.
Yeah.
Will Smith said, first time he jumped off a plane, the guy that pushed him off said 3-2 and pushed him at 2, and that's kind of what we do with business every day.
That's remarkable, because a lot of times as business owners, some of us are, really good at the client interaction piece, and others of us struggle desperately at the same time with our marketing piece. We're really good in person, but when it comes to like that digital perception, that can be a challenge, right? Because you want to be as salesy as possible. I want the lead. That's what the businesses want.
What you do it for, right?
Exactly. But in actuality, it's more like content creation to tell what the consumer truly wants rather than it is for you to be that salesperson, right? So how would you suggest it would be a good way for people in order to, capture those leads? You're talking about ads. Is there some sort of like funnels that you help create, or what is it for you that allows you to help businesses capture more leads?
When I started in 2015, Develomark, the statistic from the Small Business Administration was people are going to look at 2 things when they start researching your company, your website and potentially your Facebook. Now, it's up to 10 things. So it's your website, your Facebook, your Instagram, your personal connections and recommendations. They're going to search your name to find out if there's already any reports. They're going to check Better Business Bureau. They're going to check your Google reviews, your Yelp reviews. So it's really about that omnipresence strategy with a lot of the businesses that we work with.
It's just like that omnipresence of there's 10 different things that people are going to...
Yeah, 2015, there was 2 things. 2021, there's 10 things. As information becomes more available on the internet, the people who obsess most over how they're perceived on the web are going to get the customers that they want. The ones that aren't doing anything about it slowly are doing okay because word of mouth is still the strongest marketing factor we know of. But over time, you may wonder why your competitor has more trucks than you, more agents than you, why they have more vans than you, right? More field techs. We deal with a lot of plumbing businesses and home services and lawyers and doctors.
Okay.
And most of them are understanding nowadays that you have to be omnipresent in the event that something gets stripped away from you.
So let's say you're like a starting business owner and you're asking yourself, okay, where do I get started?
Sure.
And they're like, okay, I can do Facebook, I can do Instagram. And then I think it would be advantageous for them to contact someone in the media space like yourself in order to assist them with all the other platforms rather than trying to maintain that themselves. I mean, do you find that most successful businesses are doing that?
100%. Most successful businesses that we've worked with are heavily invested in their website because Yelp can say, Brooke team sucks. Facebook can say, Brooke team sucks. Your website, you control the narrative. So a lot of these brands understand that if I want to research Brooke team, I'm going to search you on Google. And the first thing that's going to pop up is usually your website. And so if I click on that website and the narrative isn't strong and there's not a direct reason as to why somebody should work with you, they're not going to work with you. They're going to find somebody else, or they may inquire and waste your time, but they've really, 80% of the sales decision is made during the sales process.
Yeah. Talk to me about like the experience on the website. So some people just have something that's more static that's in place. Others have actual chat functions that are available. Do you find that any of those are more or less effective than the other?
We want to stuff the website as much as possible with as much information as possible. The reason for that is because users are completely in control. So we don't know, we can't predict what they're going to click around with. So making that information as available as possible is critical. On the flip side, there is a sales funnel, which your website is a sales funnel. But on a sales funnel, there is just one piece of information on one page, so they can't do that clicking around. That strategy is starting to die out because people are starting to realize users can just X and just go find something else.
Right.
So having that website set up in a way where it's information jam-packed, there's a chat function, there's a contact form, there's a clear call to now, there's information that they're looking for, and really understanding the persona of your customer and everything they could possibly look for, which is keyword research and SEO, which we do every single day, is really, really critical to making sure that that customer doesn't leave your website. Because guess what? Just like a YouTube video that lasts, the viewer watches it a long time, the longer somebody goes on your website and visits your website, the more Google's prone to say, when somebody types in real estate agent, I want Brooke team to show up because people are having a good experience with it. We are Google. We want people to use our search engines. We don't want people to go to DuckDuckGo. So therefore, the websites that get the most time on the site is going to rank first.
And how about for video content? Like, tell me about that in the presence of the website. As people continue to, we get constantly spammed, like any other industry, but probably even more so in the real estate space, because real estate agents are looking for that silver bullet, that one thing that's just going to fix their business, where all the leads are just starting to pour through all the time. We get bombarded by these out-of-a-box websites that you can buy that integrate with IDX and everything else. Mm-hmm. As you are a creator of websites, what do you find is the most important to have? You're talking about getting your website jam-packed. What are some important things, and is video up on there as to what should be present on a website?
Listen, we buy things that are beautiful at the end of the day. We don't buy things that are mediocre. We don't try to buy things that are, they're cheap and they last a little while. People are focusing more on quality. A recent research on Amazon and how people search through Amazon, people are actually filtering by most expensive. They're not filtering by lowest cost. Of course, commodities like toilet paper, you might do that. But when you're buying a suit, right, or when you're buying a website, or when you're visiting a website, beautiful still sells. So a website that's high in contrast, a website that has really solidified brand colors, a website that has really nice sharp blues, reds, yellows, some of those contrasting colors, and soft and white and like beautiful, big text, very easy to read, video playing through the background, you're automatically instilling trust into that customer, because a business that cares about their branding often cares about its customers.
And their process.
And
right?
their process.
And am I going to experience that process, the experience that I have on my website, the experience that I'm seeing on social, the experience that I'm having with them? That's going to be consistent when I actually do business with them. And it seems that there's such a barrier to entry before the contact point with people. And that is why that digital presence is so big. But let me ask you about this. There's this thing going around called digital empathy. It's the ability to convey that care through your platform. Where do you see that showing up? And do you see that showing up with your customers?
I see it showing up with our personal branding and our marketing. Through the little marketing that we do. Most of our marketing is through our customers. But I think in terms of digital empathy, it's really just ensuring that when you're going on video and when you're doing content, you are aware that you're not the know-it-all. That humility really shows through your branding and your marketing. It's easy to say we are the best on your website. There's associations that will take that down if you're not actually the best and the highest reviewed, like the Bar Association. You can't just go on a lawyer website and say we're the best lawyers. You just can't, because says who, right? Is it the Bar Association, or is it ask a lawyer?
Your mom.
Your mom, right? So there definitely is empathy of really understanding that the customer can see right through your bullshit. And at the end of the day, we're currently going to test a site that literally says everything negative about the company that the company wants to talk about and not the positives. Because you go to a website, you expect to see, I'm the greatest person in the world, right? Because it's completely biased. You're the one that wrote the content. But if you go to a website and say, look, we may not be the best plumbing company for you, and this is the reason. We're trying to see how that impacts the conversion rate of somebody going to the website. Of course, this is not a real business. No real business is up for that, but we need to be able to demonstrate that in our ads. We've also thought about going on a website and literally considering the facts as to why people haven't worked with us in the past and seeing how that affects conversion rates. People might laugh at it. People might call in just to find out. So we're always testing some of these different things. The test that we have right now is a political test. It's a website that has all branding of Joe Biden and seeing how it affects conversions, and then it's going to change to Trump, seeing how it affects conversions.
Interesting.
But once again, I think the digital empathy thing is really real, and showing the humility and the vulnerability of yourself as a person, people really cling on to.
So many times it's easy to say, hey, I'm the best at this or I'm the best at that, because the desire from the business owner, the desire from the real estate agent is to say, well, if they are the best, then as a consumer, I'm going to go with the best. When in actuality, that humility sometimes bleeds through and captures a lot more than it does from sometimes like that person who is the best. Are they going to have time for me? Are they going to actually have the space in order to interact with me and spend that amount of time that I'm going to need through this process? There's certain individuals who are like, no, I'm going to need you to like sit at my dining room table for over 2 hours and explain this. I don't know if that company can actually do that. And so one of our main goals all the time is that people over profit, which just exemplifies even in your listing presentation, in your buyer consultation, that we're taking, yes, even though we are number one in Connecticut for the number of sales, how can I showcase that to the consumer where they're still feeling that empathy, both in the digital aspect and in the personal aspect? So let me ask you, another question, just regarding some of the future of marketing and where you see that going. You've alluded to that about some things that are not working anymore. You've alluded to, hey, what happens if Facebook takes you down? What happens if their policies change in such a way that you're not able to? Where do you see marketing, going? And then let's relate it back to small business and real estate.
The way that marketing is going is the metaverse, non-fungible tokens, NFTs, and self-sovereignty, meaning we own and control our data, and we have the decisions of what's going to appear in front of us every time we log into a search engine or a Facebook profile. So starting with the metaverse, just like you buy a domain name today, people are buying land in the metaverse, and people are going to those lands to experience things with their friends. So now you have the opportunity for commerce. Someone like me who owns metaverse land will sell you digital advertising there on a fake billboard, and you'll see the brand that I charge to be up there. NFTs, Brooke team might create an NFT that allows you to get access to some sort of back-end portal that gives the customer, tools that they normally wouldn't have through a front-end portal. So really having that self-sovereignty and being the one that controls your data rather than being a product. So Facebook right now, you're the product of Facebook. We all are.
Correct, yeah.
Say Facebook sells us to businesses. In the self-sovereignty and metaverse economy, which is coming probably 10 to 15 years from now, is going to be very much, we are the product of ourselves and we sell to these companies, and that is going to dictate everything. So right now, when you buy a domain name, you're basically renting a space on a server. Right now, when you buy a piece of land in the metaverse, through the different metaverses that they have, you're buying much bigger service space than a website. Website, you might see, could be a couple gigs in size. I think Brooke team, when we're working on it, is probably like 25 gigs. A metaverse piece of land, though, might be 500 gigs. So the experience of marketing is going to become much more enriched, especially with digital. I think the in-person things are never going to change. The more that you can empower the consumer to have a personal conversation with you is the most powerful. Doesn't matter if the virtual experience. So there's also a theory of all of this stuff that's coming in the horizon, the metaverse and the NFTs, completely dying and things going back to experiential, which is creating events and actually seeing people in hands, shaking their hands for a brand. So we don't know where it's going to go, but based on what I'm seeing right now, the kids that are growing up with Roblox and Minecraft and all of these other things, they're expecting to start to see ads inside of those platforms, and they're going to be paid in cryptocurrency, and that cryptocurrency is going to be real world money that they can use to buy like a sandwich at Subway.
Which is pretty incredible. So how can small business owners, real estate agents, how can we prepare for some coming changes?
Well, I think the first thing you guys need to look at is the first house that was sold as an NFT.
You saw that?
Yeah. So a house was sold without the governance of anything.
Yeah.
Which is complete self-sovereignty, right? Mm-hmm. There's no town hall. There's no government. There's taxes, of course, because all of it's reported through the cryptocurrencies. Yep. But I think the first thing is to read that article. The homeowner said it was not in her best, she didn't do well with it just because it was an NFT, but she's also an NFT creator in the space, so she wanted to see how it would work. And the fact that it actually worked,
right?
And it's legal, we think, is a huge sign of everything becoming what somebody values and being transferred digitally through a wallet. So I think that's the first step. I think the second step is to understand Facebook is not the metaverse. Facebook changed their name to Meta, obviously for a very good reason. Mm-hmm. And to just get some basic knowledge of what the metaverse is and what an NFT is. It's not some way for you to just make $1 million overnight over something. It's a utility primarily for security, which is really good for real estate security, proven ownership of things, and transferring very expensive assets.
Right.
So if you're a small business, there's nothing you could really do right now with the metaverse and the NFT other than start to get educated on it, because we're very much in the internet bubble in the 2000s. Right now with cryptocurrencies in the metaverse, all of these projects that are up right now are all going to die. All these NFTs are not going to be popular soon. They're all blowing up because it's cool and new, but none of them serve real value. Just like several of the .com websites back in 2000s, I could say, hey, David, I made junk.com and it's going to be worth billions one day just because it's a .com. Can you give me $5 million? And you're like, okay, cool. I don't know much about this, but I'll give you the money. Whereas now you're seeing a lot of these hot words, very similar, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, metaverse, NFTs. People are giving money to those things left and right, and they're losing them all because of rug pulls. So I would say the first step is to definitely get educated on what's coming on the horizon, which is an enriched 3D experience rather than 2D. Right now, we're in 4-dimensional. Metaverse is 3D. Our phones are 2D. We can't go in it, but it's still useful. So being in the internet instead of on the internet is what's coming.
That's incredible. And so what certain platforms should small businesses kind of find this information, how to market to it? What could you see them doing in order to educate themselves better?
Look at your kids. That is critical. Kids have this weird, I don't know what it is, but it's like the best products always come from kids. Minecraft, Roblox, a lot of these different tools that they're playing with on their iPad while you're busy doing, contracts, right? Just observe how they're using it and understand what they're actually doing with it. Roblox has its own currency. Kids are literally trading money in Roblox and the parents don't even know it. And so looking at what they're doing and really starting to understand how advertising is going to affect those different types of things is probably the best way to start learning about it. But I also think very similar to Google. When you search Google, you see an ad on the listing, right? 2D. When you're in the metaverse, if there's a Brooke team office in the metaverse, right, and we come here to do real estate conferences, well, now Brooke team can not only have 20 realtors here because of the size, you can have millions because it's all digital. So as long as somebody like me can build that for you, you can send billions of people to one event.
It's so incredible because, the brokerage that I'm a part of, eXp Realty, they have been pioneering this in such a huge way. They have this company called Verbella, which they've created this metaverse. And so, when I log in to go meet with my broker, it's very interesting. I used to be a part of, small brokerages, large brokerages. You'd pick up the phone, you'd go to call, you go to voicemail. Sometimes, you produce enough, they pick up, or hey, sorry, I'm in a meeting right now, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Now, it's absolutely incredible. We'll talk in a recruiting meeting with somebody. We'll say, okay, great, let's race to see who picks up. We can interact with our broker quicker. And either with my phone through the metaverse or through my computer, I'm able to jump in and actually go and meet with a broker in probably under 60 seconds. Mm-hmm. And then it's a full conversation. We're able to share screens. We're able to see each other's documents. We're able to share files. You could put on VR and walk through the metaverse, which is it's the EXP world that's present there. Mm. And people these days they're like, well, it's kind of like a video game. But I'm like, hey man, you're missing the utility of what's actually possible in these spaces, because not only you're talking about buying metaverse land, I'm in the real estate business, but now we're able to hold conferences where you don't have to worry about certain issues that may show up because you have a ton of people in one space, or cancellations or anything like that. You're all able to meet, and people around the world can be a part of your conference at the same exact time. We can have a meeting with every person in leadership in an EXP event in 2 minutes, and it's not in a Zoom. It's like literally in a room, and we're able to share these files and walk through and have an experience with each other without the necessity to like actually fly and meet together. Now, I'm not discounting that at all. I mean, there's the power of the actual world that we live in right now, but I think that realty companies need to absolutely adapt to what is coming through metaverse and through the new marketing changes that will happen into the future. And so, I think everything that you're talking about is extremely important for small business owners to maintain and to be aware of. And if you're not a part of a brokerage that has that sort of aspect to it, then either they're in denial of it or they just don't see value in it. And I'm, on the, supposition that in the latter thought, you're maybe missing what some of the massive companies of the world actually do see value in and are starting to put, capital behind. One of the more interesting things right now, not to get off topic by any means, is as we're talking about crypto and whatnot and into real estate, is we're now talking about getting crypto mortgages that are happening now. Because if people are buying these homes through, as an NFT, now all of a sudden it's like, well, I can't actually afford, 300 ETH. You know what I mean? For a product, I don't have that in cash, and so how do I do that? I need this DeFi loan or whatever it is in order to make that happen, which is just so interesting. And so, marketing is so closely related to this new experience world of Meta, and so I think it's only imperative for small business owners and for real estate agents to become slightly familiar with this space as it continues to expand.
And it starts with the education of it. And for example, when we deliver your brand files, when we're complete with them, I think they are. If you have an Ethereum wallet, it's going to be transferred as an NFT, and there's only one of them created because you own it.
Right.
So when we transfer it to you, all of the Brooke team is protected under copyright, but it's in an NFT with your wallet. Another really interesting thing that you mentioned in terms of the real estate world, there's a question that we always get, and it's can't we just make more real estate in the metaverse? And so a lot of the times these DAOs, these decentralized authority organizations, they will actually not create new real estate in the metaverse. And that drives up the economy because now you have unavailable spaces and people are owning these spaces and you have to do business. You can't just create things. That devalues everything. So the way that they're going about it is very clever. It's very tied to our existing financial situation in the real world. It's just how can we extract the stuff we've done online to make real value in person.
Well, you've been super helpful in just talking about just the importance of getting educated on this. You've also been very helpful in talking about getting your personal brand along with the content creation. What are a few things that some of these starting business owners, they can take away from this podcast and say, here's something I can do today. I'm brand new into real estate. I just started today. I don't even know where to start. Give them a couple of things that they can walk away from this podcast with. Yeah,
marketing is all about talking to people and reaching as many people as possible. In your first 1 to 5 years of business, your goal is to talk to as many people as possible, get as many customers as possible, and get your word of mouth going. Without that, digital really can't do much for you. People know you already, right? So people are searching your name, going to your website. They're already becoming customers before they've even talked to you because of your brand.
Yep.
Initially, though, when you're starting out, they might not be the most ideal customers, but they're customers.
Yeah.
Work with as many as possible, get your experience up, find your niche, and then once you have that niche, then start doing all your marketing. Because things change very fast. Imagine you wanted to change your logo completely right now, not from what you just changed it to completely. It's a big impact on your business.
That's right.
So don't make those decisions initially. Stop focusing on what does my logo look like? What does my website look like? What is this? Start doing guerrilla marketing. Start talking to people.
I find that people, they get into this space and there's so much of this imagery of what real estate could be. And we get that from social media. We get that from these guys who are I'm a luxury agent and I'm sipping on my BMW. And it's
Stefan.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the idea behind what real estate is. But it's not. A lot of this has to do with the amount of units and getting the experience in order so that you can have a true brand and say why you're different. Because when you're starting out, you're not really that different.
No.
You just obtained a license. You're just trying to get customers as much as possible. And so getting that content out as much as possible to get those units under your belt, and alongside my pitch is to have a mentor alongside of you who's walking you through so you actually don't screw up the deal and screw up somebody else's life with that.
Sure.
Is so important, because then once you get those units under your belt, now you're able to actually develop your marketing further and to really truly define who you are. It's like the simple progression of maturity of becoming from that teenager into a young adult, because you're going through this experience to truly find out who you are and gain through that. And that does happen in small business. And so a lot of times I encourage these small business owners, I encourage real estate agents, don't despise the day of small things, because those are the days where you're learning and you're getting your feet wet and you're honing your skills. And then once you get that identity behind you a little bit more fully, lean on the brand a little bit in the beginning, but then once you get that, now you can start, fashioning your own brand as you continue to grow, and then utilizing these marketing tactics that you're talking about.
Completely agreed.
Yeah. So thanks so much for joining me, Ruan. I really appreciate it, man. How can people reach you? Because obviously you're a wealth of information, and in the marketing world, people should definitely be doing business with you.
Yeah, I think develomark.com, develomark.com is probably the best way to start. From there, you can basically see how we present ourselves. Like you said, people over profit. I love that. We like to say time is not money. Time is love. Time is care. Time is passion, a little bit more than money.
Yep.
But you can visit developmark.com and basically find everything. I mean, I'm talking about how you should have a nice website, right? So marketing company better have a nice website.
Cool, man. Well, look forward to seeing you there, obviously, and thank you for your work with us.
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys listening to this episode.